I'm on chapter 30 of Beyond the Echo Cavern by BreAnna Teschendorf, and this chapter is called First Contact. The three newcomers turned their heads to watch the snake's long, long tail disappear around the corner before daring to speak. Charlie began. Hi! He had a big, enthusiastic grin on his face. He had barely gotten this out when something hard hit him over the head. He fell down with a thud. You can fool with the snakes, but you cannot fool us, said the person who had hit him. Hey, cried Annika, but she had barely gotten out the word when a huge rock smashed down on her head too. Gabe was already knocked out on the floor beside her. The children were only out for about 3 minutes, but when they came back around, they were surprised to find their hands tied together and a bunch of faces standing over them, talking about them, not mindful of their consciousness. They aren't from here. Who knows what they want? Argued the biggest of the group, the one who had used a rock to knock out Charlie. We should ask them, came a response from someone they couldn't see. A murmur of agreement rose from the crowd. It could be a trick. The snakes might have brought them to spy on us. Well, then tying them up is a bad idea, said a panicked-sounding voice. The snakes didn't send us. Ouch! Ho-on sent us. Charlie interrupted their argument loudly, even though his head was pounding painfully. All eyes were instantly fixed on him. What? Asked the big guy. Ho-on sent us to rescue some children trapped in the crystal and take them out of the cave. I think they are in the walls of the palace. Does that mean anything to you? Charlie finished. Untie us! Gabe shouted. Amazingly, the response of the trapped children to Charlie's explanation was to burst out in laughter. Charlie's mouth fell open in confusion. Hey, what is so funny? Annika demanded. By now, she had completely lost her temper. She was embarrassed at being laughed at. Ho-on sent you? There is no such person, said the big guy, who was obviously the ringleader. Yeah, and there was nowhere but here, someone in the crowd shouted. Yes, there is, Gabe said indignantly. Have you seen him? Asked a voice from the back of the group, sounding more curious than challenging. Everyone seemed to hold their breath in anticipation as this question was sounded. Well, no. Charlie, Gabe, and Annika all looked at each other, feeling strange, acknowledging that they hadn't actually seen him. A little groan of disappointment came from the group as they admitted this. Then how can you say he sent you? Asked another voice. You are liars, said the big leader before they had a chance to answer. I don't know why you are here or who you are, but you don't belong here and we can't trust you. I think we should leave them tied up. A noise of consent arose in agreement. Annika, Gabe, and Charlie protested, all talking at the same time, trying to persuade the group of their innocence and the truth of their story. The group ignored them and dispersed in all directions. Dutifully, some children put out torches all around the room, which were providing it with a dim flickering light. The rest laid down in different corners to sleep. Gabe, Annika, and Charlie kept trying to speak to different children and explain themselves, but no one would talk to them. They were either ignored completely or roughly told to be quiet. The three children slept very little that night, and when the new day came, things didn't get better. The children continued to ignore them and eye them mistrustfully. And when they all went out to go to work, they left the 3 children tied up there, uncomfortable, hungry, and forlorn. "This is not what I expected would happen," said Charlie. Indeed, it was not what any of them had expected. They had envisioned themselves being celebrated as heralds of good news by the trapped children, whose eyes would sparkle with thankfulness and hero worship of their deliverers. They had imagined themselves leading a group of the dejected children into Ho-On's glorious kingdom with their heads held high. They had never imagined that the children they were sent to help would tie them up and call them liars. I can tell you now that the worst part of their journey was just beginning. The trio's entrapment went on for many, many days. They were given a little to eat, and they were allowed to get up to use the toilet and stretch their legs a little. Otherwise, they were left tied up and guarded almost constantly by the other children. It soon became apparent that the snakes were not actually guarding very much. The mining children seemed to mostly govern themselves. They made no attempt to escape, so there really was no reason for the snakes to guard them constantly. The snakes did sometimes hang around, but it seemed that their chief purpose was to put their prisoners up to mischief. They could be heard whispering suggestions into the children's ears as they wriggled past. For example, they might suggest that one child steal golden jewelry from another child, or to steal a day's mining, making it look like the thief was a much better worker than the victim. Or the snakes would stir up trouble by spreading lies. They would tell one boy that another boy was plotting against him, until a kind of war did develop between the boys. They encouraged the children to commit violence against each other and to greedily hoard their food. They rewarded some children, the very, very naughty ones, with more food and more gold. They also gave them the best places to mine. The result of all this scheming by the snakes was a complete lack of trust and camaraderie between the miners. No one could be sure who their enemies were or who might become their enemy, and so it was each child for himself. Therefore, they didn't even hesitate to hurt each other. They didn't feel very bad about it when they did hurt each other. In all of this, the snakes were very successful. Thus, their job as guards was a mere formality, an afterthought. Being thus tied up, Annika, Gabe, and Charlie grew very sore. They couldn't get comfortable to sleep at night, and the ropes on their wrists and ankles chafed. Worse than their physical pain was their depression. They all felt very weary and despondent because they had been so disappointed right when their journey had seemed it would be fruitful. They barely knew how to rouse their spirits again. They felt like giving up, and if they had been set free just then, I think they would have left the children there and simply tried to make their way home. Fortunately, they were not set free, and during their imprisonment, something good happened. End of chapter 30. See you on the next chapter.